So humble yourselves before God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Come close to God, and God will come close to you. Wash your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, for your loyalty is divided between God and the world. Let there be tears for what you have done, and let there be sorrow and deep grief. Let there be sadness instead of laughter, and gloom instead of joy. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up in honor.
This is an echo song, so if you don't know it, that's okay. You can echo. If you do know it, sing along with us, and people will echo you. How's that sound? These are the words of Psalm 62, verses 5 and 6. I wait quietly before God, for my hope is in Him. Sing that again. I wait quietly before God, for my hope is in Him. He alone. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress, where I will not be shaken. I wait quietly before God, for my hope is in Him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. Thank you, Lord, my fortress, where I will not be shaken. He alone, He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress, where I will not be shaken. Just quiet yourself before the Lord. Quiet your heart, quiet your mind before Him. before God.
Before God.
For my
hope
is in Him.
is in Him.
Let's pray, church. Lord, we come to you in prayer as a family through you, Lord. I want to recognize all the people who have helped with the church make this possible, who helped us bring your word through Pastor. But I also want to recognize the people in the boat, whatever they're going through. Help them. Whether it's guilt, grief, being lost, anything. Help them through the struggles. Help them through it all. Just as you helped a lot of us in this room. We know the journey is dangerous, but we want you to be our map, our compass. So guide us through this dangerous path, so we are not alone. We trust you. In Jesus' name, amen.
You're doing it wrong. Anybody ever say that to you? People say that to me all the time. Hopefully you don't hear that too often. But the reason I use this phrase is because I want to talk with you about this thing that some people think we do wrong. And then the question becomes, is it wrong or is it right? Is that your opinion? Is this what God says? What are we talking about here? It's when people experience pain and they have grieving. That's part of the scripture that we have already heard yet this morning. When we go through a trauma, when we face a loss, something that cuts deep, and we have that kind of grief in us, then other people don't always respond very well to our experience in that. And there are a number of reasons for that, but we express our pain and we express our grief in a variety of different kinds of ways. For some people, they just get numb. I don't know if you're that way, but when I'm feeling wounded emotionally or whatever, sometimes I just kind of try to block out those feelings. But the danger with that is that anything that I am feeling is hidden. You can't see it. I just appear to be numb. And is that right or is that wrong? Other people, when they experience grief, they blow up. And you've seen people like this. Maybe you are one of the people like this when they're in pain, and so then they maybe just react without thinking through, or maybe they justify their overreaction because of that grief, that pain that they're experiencing. And when this happens, there are times that people will condemn others for experiencing grief. So if you're going through something like a job loss or a marriage that's falling apart or an illness or a loved one who passes away, and others look at you and they just think, well, why don't you just move on? The world is continuing to go. You're still upset about this? Why are you hanging on to this pain? You're thinking about it. You're talking about it. And some folks, they get kind of stuck in their grief, or it may appear that they're stuck in it, and they're still feeling the feels. They're still bringing up the subject matter of whatever it was that has given them this pain well past the point where others are still comfortable. And other people get kind of irritated with us if we have this prolonged experience of grieving. They don't feel comfortable with it, and so they kind of distance themselves from us if we're having this lengthened period of grief. They want us to be better, but they also don't really feel super when we're all sad and legitimately, right? Legitimately sad, but it makes some others feel uncomfortable. So who's wrong in that case? Is somebody wrong? The person grieving, or the person who's like, hey, you need to move on. You need to move forward. And some of these people that prolong that grief, then they're wondering, is this normal? Shouldn't I feel better? Am I supposed to, by this point after the tragedy that took place, shouldn't I be happy again? Everybody experiences grief and loss. Every single one of us. Everyone in the room, everyone watching the video, everybody around the world. We all have experiences of pain, experiences of loss. And these experiences of pain at times, as strange as it may seem, can actually be good for us. And I'm guessing that might not be something that makes total sense to some of us, but when we experience that trauma and when we experience that pain, the part that could be good for us is the part that might actually influence us to do things differently next time. If you've had a loved one who passed away, you can't do that differently next time. That doesn't work. But if the pain that you're experiencing is something like putting your hand into a fire, ow, what does that teach me? Not to do that next time. The pain can be a good thing because it might influence the way that I respond or interact with the world around me next time. So do you think there's a right way or a wrong way that we're supposed to respond to grief? How many people think like, there's no way that you got to do it, it's just whatever you do? Anybody fall in that category? Whatevs. No, not too many. How many people like, yeah, there are definitely some ways that seem wrong and not a good way to deal with grief? I'll give you a couple examples because I fall into that category. I'll put my hand up there. There are things we can do when we are grieving, when we are sad and experiencing pain, that are helpful, but there are also some other things that are really destructive, like going out drinking or sexual promiscuity or making yourself hard or isolated and not allowing the Lord or other people to be able to help you to find comfort and hope. These types of responses can be very damaging. So there is a wrong way to respond to pain, and most of us have tried those strategies at least at some point in our lives. We're in the near the beginning, not the first week, but near the beginning of this sermon series about spiritual disciplines. So spiritual disciplines are those things that we do to grow closer to God. And a lot of times when we talk about growing closer to God, what will very quickly come to mind, and you guys had mentioned this a couple weeks ago when I introduced the subject, was like, well, maybe we will spend time reading our Bible, or we will spend time praying. And there are a few of these rhythms that can become a part of our lives that many of us have heard about, many of us have practiced, and many of us have even put into a habitual part of the rhythm of our lives. But there are also some of these strategies, some of these spiritual disciplines that are less commonly talked about. So I want to explore those together with you so that you don't just stay at the surface level of your soul, that you can actually get to go deeper with God. And there are ways that over time we have found position us so that we can encounter Him and be influenced by Him and hear from Him. 2 weeks ago, the message on that particular day was about silence. And I invited you, if you were interested, to text the word quiet to that number. I have some resources, some free resources that are available to you, and I'd love to be able to follow up with you too. If you're interested, maybe not in the quiet part, maybe you are, but if you're interested in finding practical things that you can do to grow closer to God, then I'm going to invite you, head back online to that video from 2 weeks ago. You can watch that there if you weren't together with us, and just send me a text. But that was the introduction to this series. Today, I want to show you another spiritual discipline. Keeping in mind, spiritual disciplines are those things we do to grow closer to God, that we do intentionally, that we do like a rhythm in our life. And the thing that I want to talk to you today about is lament. Lament is not a word that shows up very often in our common conversations. Maybe you're familiar with it. Maybe it's something that you've practiced. I don't know. But I don't observe very many people experiencing lament. I see people who are in pain. I see people who are sad, people who cry, people who are kind of not in a great mood, but that's not the same thing as lament. And I want to show you, I want to teach you what this looks like in the Bible and how this is one of the things that we can do, one of the spiritual disciplines we could practice in order to grow closer to God. Lament is intentionally expressing your pain to God. Not just it slips out, but I'm going to purposefully, intentionally express the pain I have. I'm going to express it to God while staying with Him long enough to receive his answer. That's my working definition for lament. And there are a few ways that a few shapes that it takes. But when I talk about lament today, this is the idea that I want you to have in mind. It's intentional. It is this expression of pain, and it is to God. So I express pain to my friends, to my family, to my loved ones, but I'm talking today about expressing it to the Lord, and that's different. So to be clear, if you're wondering, I started with this question, is there a right way or a wrong way to experience grief? I want to be clear. There are wrong ways that are harmful to us, and I want you to be guarded against those, whether it's substance abuse or inappropriate relationships or pretending to be fine when you're not. That's not helpful. That's damaging to us. And I don't want to be a kind of person who pretends. I don't want you to be that way either. It's not good for us. So I want to teach you this better way, this lament. So whether you are hurting right now, some of us are, or whether you will certainly be hurting later, we all fall into the category of we need to lament. Maybe not now, but we're going to, at some point, need to have a way to give our pain, intentionally give that, express that to God, and then to stay with him long enough that he can respond to us in it. And that can enable us to heal. I've heard the phrase, time heals all wounds. Have you ever had a wound that time didn't heal? I have. Have you ever had a trauma or a crisis or someone hurt you so badly you thought you could trust them, but they stabbed you in the back in such an awful way, and it didn't really matter how much time went by, you still hurt. You're not better. I don't buy into the phrase time heals all wounds. Time is just like time. And lament is designed by God so that we can actually do something more than, well, I'm going to tough it out. I'm just going to try my best and put my chin up. Yeah, try your best, put your chin up, that's good. But there's more. There's more for you and for me that can really be helpful to our souls and help us to stop living at the surface to go deeper with God. Let's look at that text together. I want to show an example of someone who was practicing lament. In Luke 8, we're going to be starting in verse 40. This person who is experiencing pain and grief, and they're going to give us an example that we can learn from here. In Luke 8, starting in verse 40, it says this. On the other side of the lake, crowds welcomed Jesus because they had been waiting for him. And then a man named Jairus, a leader of the local synagogue, that's the Jewish place of worship, Jairus, a leader of the local synagogue, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come home with him. His only daughter, who was about 12 years old, was dying. Now, if you've got kids, you know what it's like when your kid is sick, when your kid is hurt, when your kid is facing pain, maybe relational or emotional, or if it's an illness, sometimes there's nothing you could do. I have sought the Lord's help, like Jairus did. He came to Jesus and said, you got to help me. My daughter's dying. I've sought the Lord's help for my kids more times than I can count. And many parents listening to my voice right now have done the same thing. God, my son, God, my daughter really needs you because of this. And we're seeking him because this is bad and it's getting worse. And so Jairus does this. He comes to Jesus and he asks for some help. So whether you are praying about a loved one's illness like Jairus was, or maybe a threat to your finances or a marriage on the rocks, maybe your job is in jeopardy or some other crisis, many of us have done the same thing that Jairus did, just in this line right here, that we've brought that experience to the Lord to ask for help. Even at times, we've felt desperate, because look at his posture. What's he do? He falls down on his knees. That's like he's begging. You got to help my daughter. She already saw this doctor. She already tried this treatment. We already explored what the possibilities were. None of it's working, and she's getting worse and worse and worse. And so he's feeling desperate. And thankfully, Jesus was headed over to Jairus' house. I love that, all right? When you seek the Lord, doesn't it feel good to think, okay, then he's coming. I need your help, Lord. He's coming. He's on the way. He's walking with you towards that resolution here. Look at partway through verse 42. Partway through verse 42. As Jesus went with him, they're headed to the house. As Jesus went with him, he was surrounded by crowds, and a woman in the crowd who had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding, and she could find no cure. Coming up behind Jesus, it says she touched the fringe of his robe, and immediately the bleeding stopped. So at this point in the text that we're reading about here, we have two people who need God's help, two people who are seeking help from the Lord. One of them is this 12-year-old girl who is suffering and she's about to die. The other one is this woman who's been suffering for 12 years. I don't know if there's any significance to the fact that both of them, she's a 12-year-old girl who's suffering. This woman's been suffering for 12 years, but it was a pattern there, if nothing else. And they're coming to the Lord, and we're smart enough to know, I believe that we're smart enough to know that we're not the only ones who are experiencing crisis. When you are in pain, and maybe that's where you are right now, then you're smart enough to know you're not the only one who's in pain. We can kind of get wrapped up in ourselves. We can, like when you feel that pain, and it's hard to think about others because I'm just trying to take care of me, but I also know, but others have problems too, right? It's not only me who needs to come to the Lord and say, Lord, help me. It's also that person needs to, and this person needs to, and so we get that, but we still hope to be the first one in line for receiving God's help. When you're at the grocery store and you're getting ready to check out, you don't go to the one who's got the long line. Where do you go? You go to the register with the shortest line. I'm coming to you, Lord, and I want to be at the front of the line of people who are going to receive help from God. I know other people need your help, but me, Lord, would you help me? Would you help my loved one, whatever the case may be? And it feels an awful lot like this woman ditched the line. Now, that'll get kicked out of the amusement park, right? You don't get to spend the rest of the day in Disney World or Cedar Point if you do that. They catch you ditching the line, boop, you're booted. And so Jesus is walking with Jairus on the way to Jairus' house to help him with Jairus' daughter. But before they get there, this woman shows up and cuts in. She's like, nope, my turn, kind of yoinking on him. And she has this experience here. Verse 45, Jesus says, who touched me? Which is a little peculiar to me. This is coming from a guy who can read other people's minds. This is coming from a guy who made the universe. This is coming from a guy who knows what other people are thinking and what they're feeling in their heart. So why is he saying, who touched me? Do you think he's confused about who did it? I don't. Observing the other things that Jesus has done and his ability to know people, even before he sees them face to face, to know about them and to know their secrets and what's hidden within their hearts, I don't think he's asking this question because he needed to learn the answer. I think he's asking this question because he wanted us to learn the answer. He wanted us to pay attention to the answer to this question. He's not seeking information, he's revealing information. Who touched me? He asked. Everyone denied it, it says next. And Peter said, Master, this whole crowd is pressing up against you. Jesus, this doesn't make sense. What do you mean who touched you? Everybody's touching you. They're all over us. This place is crowded. There are people everywhere. Why are you saying who touched you? Everybody's touching you. How could they identify who he meant? And they didn't know who it was. And Jesus wanted to draw it to their attention. On the way to Jairus' house to presumably heal Jairus' daughter, but that's not happening yet. Why? Because now I'm going to stop in the middle of a crowd and have a conversation to try and figure out who touched me when 1,000 people are touching me. Well, I like to give Jesus the benefit of the doubt. I think we should. When I put myself into Jairus' shoes, he's the one whose daughter is sick. And I imagine he might have thought to himself, hey, I was hoping the Lord would be able to heal my daughter. And what has just happened is the Lord has healed this woman. So he obviously has the power to heal, right? And maybe that's good news for Jairus. Maybe it's a good thing that Jesus is already demonstrating not only his ability, but his love and his care for other people. And it took place right in front of Jairus here. Verse 46, Jesus said, someone deliberately touched me. That word deliberate kind of stands out to me. For I felt healing power go out from me. Verse 47, when the woman realized that she could not stay hidden, she began to tremble and fell to her knees in front of him. That's the same posture Jairus had before. It says the whole crowd heard her explain why she had touched him and that she had been immediately healed. Verse 48, daughter, he said to her, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Okay, if this lady has faith in Jesus and when she sought the Lord for help, she received that help, maybe Jairus is thinking to himself, maybe as I'm seeking the Lord for help, he can help me too, in my pain, in my problem, with a thing that I can't solve on my own. And Jesus had proven that he could do that. But, verse 49, while he was still speaking to her, I hate this. He's speaking to this woman he just healed. He's still speaking with her. A messenger arrived from the home of Jairus, the leader of the synagogue, and he told him,
Your daughter's dead. That's not how it was supposed to go. He says, there's no use troubling the teacher now. And when you're in pain, sometimes that pain has a sense of finality to it. I'm in pain because I'm concerned that my loved one is ill. Well, but they can get better. I'm concerned, but they can get better. But if there's finality, you're not getting the dead loved one back. You're not getting the job back that you got wrongly fired from. You're not getting that friendship back from that person that stabbed you in the back and then moved to the other side of the country. Some things have finality to them. And this is what he is facing right now as a messenger. One of his messengers comes and says, she's gone. She's dead. And because of this truth, there's no use in even troubling the teacher. There's no use in even coming to Jesus and asking for help anymore. Why bother even doing anything about it? I mean, is it going to make any difference? Jairus had begun the process of seeking the Lord's help. He'd come to him. He had asked for help. But before his issue was resolved, before his daughter was healed, everybody else's life just went on. You got people in the market buying and selling stuff. You got people going to work. You got people visiting their neighbors and their friends and their family. Life just goes on. If I'm in pain and if I'm in crisis, the world doesn't stop. My world stops, but the rest for everybody else, it just keeps right on going. As if you don't even have that problem, but you do and you feel it, and you almost feel a little bit left behind sometimes. Life continued, and now this other woman had been healed. Not Jairus' daughter, but this other woman who showed up afterwards. And I think he must have wondered, why is the Lord healing her, but not healing my daughter? It makes us mad sometimes, angry with God. Why are you solving that person's problem with their job search, but not helping me to get the job I'm seeking? Why are you fixing this person's financial issue by blessing them with resources, but you're not helping me with my resources? Why is it that my loved one is getting worse and worse or even passes away when this other person, they got better and now they're not facing anymore? Why? Why, Lord? It just doesn't seem right. It doesn't mean that Jesus didn't care for Jairus' daughter. It feels that way sometimes for us. When we're not getting the answer that we hope for from God in the midst of our pain, it feels like he doesn't care, but Jesus did. And even though he cared, this doesn't make sense. Grief doesn't usually make sense. But that's why the solution to our grieving isn't just more information. Some of us, if you're wired like me, you try to make sense out of life, make sense out of your problems. I have this issue. It needs to get resolved. I need to understand it. I need to be able to wrap my arms around it. I want to try and control it to make it better. And what do we say? I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense. Because it doesn't. And getting information isn't going to solve the problem. Friends may come and offer us information. They may offer us cliche, or they may offer us some encouraging words that really could be encouraging, but I don't need information when I'm hurting, when I'm grieving, when I'm in crisis, and when I'm in pain. I don't want information. I want help. I want change. I want my problem to end and to be resolved. So things got worse for that little girl. She went from being ill to being dead, and someone's there saying, there's no use in even troubling the teacher now. This doesn't make sense. This isn't fair. My problem's not fixed. Don't even bother going to the Lord. This is what the person said. There's no point. It's worthless. It sounds like a response that devalues our grief. A response that you may have experienced before from others who devalue our pain or devalue our lament. Why even bother? Because you can't fix it. It's over. It's done. Why are you still sad? It doesn't seem like lament's going to change anything. Just move on. Just let it go. Lament doesn't often undo what caused our pain and grief. I want you to catch this, so I'll say it again. Lament doesn't always or often undo what caused our pain or grief. That's not the point. We wish that it could be undone. If you're in pain, if you're facing crisis or loss, you wish that it could be undone, but that's not the point of lament. God has something bigger in mind. And that thing that he has that's bigger isn't usually what we might wish it would be. In lament, the invisible God becomes the comforting God. In the midst of pain, when we choose to intentionally express our pain to God and then stay with him long enough to receive his answer in our lament, then the invisible God becomes the comforting God. This is why Jesus said in Matthew 5:4, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." Have you ever heard that line before? It's part of one of his most famous sermons, the section of the Beatitudes in the middle of his, we call it the Sermon on the Mount because of where he was located. It's Matthew 5-7 if you want to read that. But then that one line right there, Matthew 5, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." But guess what? Not everybody receives comfort. Not even everybody who's sad, or you might say not everyone who mourns. Well, why not? It's those who are bringing their grief to God who find comfort. This is what we do when we lament. I had a friend die when I was young. She was my teacher, and she loved me with the love of Jesus in a way that no other teacher ever had. She showed me kindness and patience, and she helped me to know the Lord, and she taught me. And I don't just think of her as my teacher, I think of her as my friend. And one day, some guys broke into her home, and they hurt her so badly that she died in a very violent and terrible way. She didn't deserve that. I don't think anybody deserves that. And it didn't make sense, ever. I can't look back on the situation and be like, okay, well, now I get it. Now I understand. I can't. It's not right. It shouldn't have happened. It's a tragedy. That's part of why it hurts so badly. Practicing lament won't bring her back. I would love to have my friend back. You would love to have your friend, your loved one, back. You would love to have that crisis in your life get undone. Yeah, of course we would want that. But lament doesn't bring her back, but it will do something else. Lament will do something that we want and something that we need. So if the source of your grief or pain is final, like the death of a loved one, you don't have to continue living in pain unhealed. This is why God welcomes us to bring our lament to him. In the light of the death of Jairus' daughter, Jesus gave several instructions to you and me that inform our practice of lament. How am I going to do this? How am I going to express my pain to the Lord and stay with him long enough that I can receive his answer? How am I going to do that in a way that the invisible God can become the comforting God for me? How? I want to show you these. So I'll peek at verse 50 here. Listen to Jesus' instructions starting in verse 50, still in Luke 8. When Jesus had heard about what happens, it's the death of Jairus' daughter. When Jesus had heard about what happened, he said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid. Just have faith, and she will be healed." And when they arrived at the house, Jesus wouldn't let anyone go in with him, except Peter, John, James, and the little girl's father and mother. Just 2 lines right here in Luke 8. Think about his instruction. Think about how that can inform us. The first part of his instruction, don't be afraid. There is fear associated with our pain. Now that part didn't initially make sense to me when I first started learning about lament. What do you mean afraid? I'm not afraid, I'm sad. What do you mean fear? I'm not fearful, I'm angry. I have this hurting. What are you talking about fear? Lament includes fear, but the fear is brought to the Lord because I might fear that I will always be in pain. If you have experienced a deep pain, whether it's physical or emotional or relational, whatever, sometimes, I would say many times, we think to ourselves, I think I'll just feel this way for the rest of my life. That I'll never heal. That I'm just doomed to feel this way. And Jesus said, don't feel that way. Don't be afraid. So when fear rears its ugly head, Your choice to lament means that you choose not to be afraid. Instead, you choose to follow Jesus' second instruction. How do I do the not be afraid part? The second part of the instruction. It shows up in verse 50. He said to Jairus, just believe. Believe. We got to trust him. It's hard to trust God when life doesn't make sense. It's hard to trust God who, we're told has this power over the universe, but yet didn't do the thing that I needed for him to do. It's hard to trust him, but this is what Jesus is asking us to choose and to commit to doing, to trust God in the midst of our pain. When everything's fine and he's showering you with blessings and you've got rainbows and unicorns and smiles and everyone gets their own balloon, it's easy to trust. Yeah, you're great, God, I trust you. It's easy to trust him. That's not really when we need to trust. When we need to just believe, when we need to just trust him, it's in the midst of our ruin. It's in the midst of our tragedy that we need him that way. And our trust in God is proven as we put this into action. It's not a feeling. It's not a wish. It's a decision, a commitment to rely upon God. He is trustworthy, and you can count on him to come through for you. It doesn't mean he'll always grant your wish, because he won't. But you can count on him, so choose to count on him. Commit to trusting in him. Jesus' third instruction is kind of buried a little bit because it's not something that he specifically said, but it's revealed in his actions. The third instruction that I'm going to point your attention to is that we need to let Jesus arrive at the house. Now, here's what I mean by this. We need to invite Jesus into our grief, to invite him into our pain. Yeah, okay, he's out there, he's powerful, he's loving, I'm still hurting. Invite him into that hurting. This is what it means here. So go to him and let him in. And when people experience pain, our spiritual enemy loves to do everything he can to use our pain and our tragedy to separate us from God. The devil, Satan, whatever you want to call him, our spiritual enemy, and his minions, they want to do everything they can to use our pain and turn that into, well, then I'm going to just stop trusting in God. I'm going to stop going to the Lord because he didn't give me the thing that I felt like I needed or wanted. Our enemy loves it if we turn our backs on the Lord. We blame God. We hold grudges against God. You've probably met some people, or maybe some of us are the people who we had a thing that happened in the past, and because of how horrible it was, God let us down, and so then we just decided that I'm done. I'm done with God. I'm done with God. I'm done with church. I'm done with all the religious stuff because it didn't work. It didn't work for me. My tragedy still happened. And separating ourselves from the only source of healing, our only source of hope, it's not only dangerous, it's also foolish. If we harden ourselves from him and we turn away from him, we're cutting ourselves off from the only one who could heal our wound, the only one who could actually help us in the midst of our pain. Instead, what we need to do is let Jesus show up at the house of your grief, the center of your pain. Invite him into that so he can work there. The fourth part of the instruction that he gave here is in verse 51. Jesus limited who had access to the grieving family. Now, did you catch that? He shows up, everybody's sad, the girl's dead, but he's like, no, you're not all coming in. I'm taking just a few of my closest disciples, and I'm taking the mom and the dad, and then everybody else has got to go. You either can't come in, or if you're already in, you got to get out. He limited the number of people who had access to this grieving family. Everyone else was sent out, including the professional mourners. We don't have this in our culture, but they would have people who you could have come and cry. Just sort of like as a cultural response to death and pain. It seems strange, but it's not a part of our cultural practice. It was for them. And it mentions then in verse 52, the house was filled with people weeping and wailing, and Jesus said, stop the weeping. She isn't dead. She's only asleep. I'll time out. What do you mean asleep? Are you dumb? Look at her. She's not sleeping. Her color's gone. She's stiff. She's been dead for a while. She's not breathing. Her heart's not beating. She's not coming back. Why are you saying she's asleep? Are you nuts? And they just made this emotional noise, these people who were paid to grieve. They're making these sad sounds, but they don't have any relational depth. Grief isn't a performance. Sometimes we turn it into one, but that's not what I'm talking about when I say grief. And not everyone should get access to your wounds. Some of us are more closed. Some of us are more open. Hopefully you know yourself well enough to recognize, like, oh yeah, I'm like a pretty guarded individual, or like, no, I'm an open book. But one way or the other, not everyone should have access to your pain, to your tragedy. Not everyone should have access to the horror that you experience in life. The ones that you choose to let into that should be spiritually grounded, not rushing you to shame, not shaming your grief, not trying to hurry you through the process, not cutting you off or mocking you or be like, hey, you just need to get over it. No. If you're going to let somebody in, that needs to be someone who is spiritually mature. So was the girl sleeping? No. This was a way that Jesus was communicating to them that he's about to do something that isn't final. The whole death of this daughter, Jairus' daughter, isn't final. In verse 53, it says, but the crowd laughed at him because they all knew. They all knew she had died. They weren't confused about it. So on top of all the platitudes, on top of all this noise, they're laughing at Jesus' response to tragedy. The situation isn't funny. They were brought here to cry, but instead of crying, they're laughing at the one who's here to help. Let's take a moment to explore, just think about how others typically respond when we face pain and loss, and when we engage with healthy lament, and what we could do about other people's responses. Sometimes people, and I want to tell you this so that you are prepared, right? When you are grieving, when you're experiencing pain, now or later, I want you to be prepared for the way that other people may treat you. Some people will just minimize your pain. They'll see what's happening in your life, and they'll just be like, oh, well, you'll get over it. It's not that bad. Things are worse for others. And it's like the messenger who said, don't even bother telling the teacher. Don't even bother reaching out to the teacher. It's over. Just move on. And they shut down lament and suggest like God is done with this situation. There's no fixing it. God's not going to help you. God's not going to listen to you. God's not going to do anything. And other people, they just minimize. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying this is the way that people sometimes treat us when we are experiencing pain. Another response that people have is that they mock our pain. Like the people at the house, they just laughed at the situation. Others ridicule our continued grief, and they ridicule our faith despite the pain that we're in. And this can push us to pretend like we've been healed when we haven't yet. I hope that you haven't been in a life situation where you had to act like you were okay when you weren't. Many of us have gone through that. I've gone through that, where I felt like I had to pretend like I was better, like I was okay, but I actually wasn't yet. And I don't want people then just minimizing my experience or mocking my experience. Some people will respond to our pain and our lament with this quick fix approach. They'll bring you cliches. They'll misuse scripture like it's a Band-Aid and then say things like, well, all things work together. Okay, I know the line. I believe it's true. But I'm not interested in your quick fix. I'm interested in actual healing. I don't want a Hallmark card that says, get well soon. I want to actually be well, and it probably won't be soon. When people become uncomfortable with our discomfort, they often try this quick fix, but it doesn't actually fix much more than their discomfort. Does that make sense? They're bringing us a quick fix saying, oh, just listen to this poem or listen to this line, or just get over it, and quick fix, quick fix, quick fix. That's not for you. That's for them because they're uncomfortable with your pain. Quick fix isn't for you. Another way that people sometimes treat us when we're in pain like this is that they will avoid it. Someone specific comes to my mind who she's uncomfortable with difficult situations and with pain, and so she'll change the subject. If you start talking about the problem, if you start talking about the crisis, and then she'll just shift and immediately start talking about something else, she's going to avoid it. And some people, they don't keep asking how you're doing. Part of the reason they don't keep asking how they're doing is because, they don't want to hear you say that you're not doing well, and they can't really fix it for you, and so they just quit asking, and they kind of disappear until you quit demonstrating your sadness. And once you do finally stop demonstrating sadness, whether or not you're actually healed, but once you stop demonstrating sadness, then they'll come back around and they'll be with you. But God doesn't avoid us. Isn't that good news? In the midst of our pain, he doesn't avoid us. He moves toward our pain if we let him, and we let him by lamenting. So I want you to see what happens next. Look at verse 54. Luke 8:54 reads, "Then Jesus took her," this is the little girl who was dead, "Jesus took her by the hand." I never thought about this before the last couple of weeks, and it just struck me as I read this line. It prompts me to ask you a question. Is your pain, for those of us who are experiencing pain now, is your pain in the hand of Jesus? Or are you just trying to deal with it on your own? Or deal with it with a friend or a loved one? Is it in the hands of Jesus? Now, here's what it looks like when it isn't, when our pain isn't in the hands of Jesus. Stuffed grief. We just keep smashing it all in there. Stuffed grief leaks out. You might think that you're just trying to deal with it and keep it all bottled up inside. You're not keeping it all bottled up inside. It is oozing out of the crevices, and it's landing on the world around you. You get loss of sleep. You have loss of energy. You have poor health. You have outbursts. Why are you so upset of this little thing? It's because you're stuffing everything else inside of your pain, and then just kind of popping its way out. Bitterness grows. People's hearts become hardened. Our compassion shrinks. If my pain isn't in the hands of Jesus, I don't have the capacity to deal with your pain. If I'm not bringing my crisis to the Lord, expressing my pain to him, and staying with him long enough to receive his answer, that's lament. If I'm not doing that, I'm not able to deal with your pain because I can't even hardly deal with mine. So compassion for other people shrinks when they're hurting, and faith becomes fake and fragile. This one, I think, is the most dangerous of all because it has the potential in it to ruin us, not just for a moment or a season or a time of life, but for eternity if our faith becomes fragile because it was contingent upon the easy and pain-free life that God never actually promised us, but we thought that he did. We've heard people say that God's going to give you this kind of easy and pain-free life, but then when I didn't have it, my fragile faith is like, well, then I'm done with God because he didn't make it easy. He didn't make it pain-free, and we turn our backs on him. If this is what your grief looks like, any of these, then your pain is not in Jesus' hands. But how do we do that? How do we put our pain into his hands? It doesn't mean that we pretend like we don't hurt. It doesn't mean that we're peaceful all the time. It doesn't mean that we understand our pain. That's not what I'm talking about. Putting your pain into the hands of Jesus means that you stop managing your pain alone and intentionally bring it into relationship with him. So when another wave hits, I was just reading a Facebook post from someone within the last few days who is experiencing pain and grief. They're in a season of life right now where they had deep pain, a deep loss. And they talked about how there was like another wave of painful emotion that just hit them. And when this happens, when like a memory surfaces or the tears return, you were going about doing one thing, and then all of a sudden you're just like ripped away from the emotional context of what you're doing because now your heart is back where your pain was. It happens unexpectedly. The littlest thing will just take you right back there, and you get hit by that again. Move from private suffering to prayerful suffering when that wave hits. You've already got the suffering. It's already within you. But move from doing that in private to doing that in prayer. That is part of what it means to give your pain to the hands of Jesus. So name it honestly to God. Honestly means no filter. You ever have salty language when you pray? You might have been taught not to do that. And I'm not going to tell you, go start cursing. But God already knows what you're thinking. He already knows what you're feeling. Don't pretend with him when you're bringing your pain to him. Just tell him. You're not going to surprise him. He's not confused. But you got to be honest with him about what you're experiencing. No editing, just raw, messy, prayer, God, he already knows about your pain, but you need to say it, even when it's messy, when you haven't run it through the spell check of your soul yet. Just say it. Secondly, stop numbing the pain long enough to feel it. I don't like this one, but I do believe this is wise, because we numb our pain in lots of different ways to try not to feel that pain, and it isn't actually helping us when we do it. It's counterintuitive for me to say stop numbing the pain, but it works. Silence instead of noise. Oh, but the noise keeps me distracted from the, You're just stuffing your pain. You're not fixing it. Prayer instead of scrolling. We do an awful lot of that. I'm in pain, so I'm going to turn right to my social media, right to my whatever. I'm just going to try to scroll that pain away. It doesn't work. You know it doesn't work. It will distract you for a bit, but that doesn't mean that you are healing. Presence, like being with, not gifts. Presence instead of distraction. We like our distractions. And some of them are benign, no biggie. But we need that silence and that prayer and that presence of God. Third, release control of the outcome. So as you're naming this loss, as you are stopping numbing long enough that you can feel it, then what we need to do is stop trying to control the situation. I hate that. I learned a lot from my very smart, wise wife. She is a licensed counselor. She's a mental health therapist, and she has taught me about issues that many of us face, where when we have a trouble, we respond by trying to control it. Because we think, maybe if I can just get a handle on this, then I'll take care of it and the problem will go away. This is the hard part, right? To stop trying to control it. You want healing, you want answers, and you want change, but you choose to trust in how God will handle you. He's not going to do it the way I want him to do it. He's not going to help you heal the way you probably want him to help you to heal, but he will heal you, because he is a comforting God who loves you more than you can imagine. You got to let go of that control and let him be the one who's doing that. Jesus demonstrated this when just before his murder, he prayed, "Not my will, but yours be done." Have you read about that or heard about that before? Before his trial and execution, then he's in the garden with his friends and he's praying, and part of his prayer was like, I don't want to do this. No one wants to be tortured and murdered. He sees it coming. He knows it's coming. This was the plan. But he didn't want that. And then he says, but not what I want, not my will, but what your will is, Father. Let's do that. Jesus was demonstrating what it is to trust the outcome to God instead of trusting my own faculties and what I'm hopefully able to accomplish, because I know that I can't. Knowing fully well that for him it meant his painful death. That's where his trust led him. Trusting in the Lord is not going to make all of our problems magically disappear, but it is going to change us. Your pain may still be there, but you're not carrying it alone anymore. Let me help you with that. Let me help you hold that. Let me carry that for you for a bit. It's weighing you down. You won't be alone anymore. Look at verse 54. Jesus took her by the hand, this little girl, and he said in a loud voice, "My child, get up." And at that moment, her life returned, and she immediately stood up. And then Jesus told them to give her something to eat, and her parents were overwhelmed. But Jesus insisted that they not tell anyone what had happened, because there was a certain time frame when it was going to lead to him being so famously known that they decided to murder him. But it wasn't now, that was later. So don't go spreading the word now. I believe that's why he did that, right? Jairus' daughter was resurrected back to life. Pastor, that sucks. Because my problem isn't raised back to life. Pastor, my loved one is still dead. My job is still gone. My marriage is still ended. My child has still abandoned me. My best friend has still stabbed me in the back. It didn't come back to life for me. Our equivalent isn't always fixed like that, but something powerful happens when we lament, even without our problems having been fixed. God meets us in our pain, and he sends us then to comfort others. He's going to come and he's going to meet you if you will invite him into your pain, and he's going to comfort you. And as he is doing that and healing you, then he's going to say, you're not done yet. Now you are going to go to that person, and you're going to help comfort them in their pain. Maybe not day one of your tragedy, but that's where he is sending us. And that's for our benefit, because he sent somebody else to me, and he sent somebody to you, and he's sending you and me to someone else as well, so that they can be active agents of the comfort and healing that comes from God. Burdens are shared, not carried alone. Emotions don't rule. Hope is reborn. Faith becomes more honest. Healing happens as we build a deeper trust in God, less self-reliance, as we have exposure of false hopes and clarification of what truly matters, and awakened compassion for others in the formation of endurance. Here's what I want for us to do. We're going to practice this like we did a couple weeks back when we practiced silence. And that might seem strange, because not all of us are in crisis right now. Not all of us are in pain. One day, sure, we will. We'll face pain. We'll face crisis. Some of us are facing it now. Some of us are not. So if you fall into that category of, well, I'm not in crisis, I'm not in pain, I'm not grieving right now, if that's who you are, then I still want you to go through this process so that you will know how to do it when you need it. Hopefully it doesn't take any convincing if you're hurting right now, but if you're like, no, my life's good, I'm okay, I'm all right, then I still want you to learn this, and I want you to practice this, because the day will come where you will absolutely need this. And it comes with these steps for how to lament. The first one I kind of hinted at earlier. It's to name the loss. So what we'll do is we're going to tell God what hurts. We're going to say, this is the thing, and I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to avoid it. I'm not going to try to avoid the pain. I'm going to address the pain. That's where it's going to start. Secondly, I want you to pray about what you desire, and pray about what you desire God would do. Now, that's not going to be undoing the past in most situations. My daughter died, so God, I want you to bring her back to life. I don't think that's what's going to happen. He could. He's the creator of life. He could do that. But what you desire for him to do now, not change the past, but what do you desire for God to do now, and what do you desire for him to do in the days to come? Name the loss. Pray about what you desire. Third, admit the fear. Whatever fear it is that you have connected with that desire. I'm afraid nothing will change. I'm afraid that I will hurt forever. I'm afraid of I'll always be alone. I'm afraid of no one will respect me. I'm afraid I will amount to nothing. I'm afraid of fill in the blank. Just admit that to him. And fourth, I want you to say Jesus' instructions, the ones that he gave to Jairus, I want you to say them out loud. So I would put it in something like this. I turn from my fear. I choose to trust in you. I invite you into my pain. These are the four steps that I'm going to direct you to take. Now, before we do that, I want to mention to you, 2 weeks ago I preached about silence and how silencing ourselves before God helps us to go deeper with him. What I didn't mention to you was that as I was preparing that sermon, my life got really noisy, and I actually mean volume. I was literally typing a portion of the sermon, and there was another person around, I won't say who it was, but they're yelling at the loudest volume they can, and they're shaking all of these bells, shing, 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 all this noise, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm trying to prepare a sermon about silence, and it's like the loudest thing I've heard in a month. It was mildly funny. Then I got to the second topic, the one we're talking about today, lament. I didn't plan on it. And I don't mean to equate my experience with yours if you were in pain, so don't hear that. That's not what I'm saying. But we got to the place in our lives as a family where we needed to put our dog to sleep. She'd lived a long life. She was experiencing terrible health complications and so much pain and suffering, and it was a hard decision. If you have pets, you know what that can feel like. It's not the same as my spouse or my child or something, but pets are important to us. They become like family. And when we got to that place and had to make that decision, it hurt. And I realized, you dummy, you've been spending all this time reading God's word and trying to listen to him and figure out that how am I going to teach people how to deal with pain? And I was in pain. And so then I just started praying, God, come and be in my pain. It's not the worst pain I've ever had, but it was the one that I had this past week. So if you're hurting, these are the 4 steps that I want you to practice right now. And if you're not hurting, then this is your opportunity to pray for people who are grieving. So for the next couple minutes then, I'm going to instruct you to do the things that are listed on the board, these 4 things being projected on the wall here. I'm going to direct you to do those things. And if you're not hurting, then I'm just going to direct you to pray for people who are doing this. But think through it so you can remember it when you are in pain later on. These are the instructions to go through these 4 things. We're going to play a song and just give us a way to kind of ease into bringing this lament to the Lord. And your instruction is either to do these 4 things or to pray for people who are. Does that make sense? Can we do that together? Let's go ahead and play that song. And if you're watching on the video, you won't hear the music, so we're going to mute that out. What joy for those whose strength comes from the Lord. When they walk through the valley of weeping, it will become a place of refreshing springs. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. These are words from Psalm 84 and Psalm 23. So now you have 2 spiritual disciplines that you can put into practice, silence and lament. And I want you to put these in practice as we go deeper with the God that we cannot see. When we finish here this morning in a moment, normally we visit and smile and chit-chat, but let's do it with the acknowledgement of there are some people here who have just had an encounter with God in a painful time. So out of respect to them, just try to be mindful of the emotional state of others who are around so that we can honor and give them the space that they need to be with the Lord. Let me give you a blessing. May we see the value in bringing our pain to God when we have so many examples of people who don't do that. May we deepen our trust in the Lord even when things don't go our way. May our faith be unshakable, not fragile and based upon our circumstance, but based upon our God who is faithful. May we recognize, remember, and act upon the truth that God has been faithful generation after generation, and he is faithful to us. May we choose to lament when we experience deep pain. Amen.